This is Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks from Master Plan Retirement Consultants. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Roadmap Radio with your host, Mark Fricks.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Retirement Roadmap Radio with me, your host, Mark Fricks. And today we are honored to have with us our co-host, Tony Shore.
Oh, the crowd's going wild.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
The crowd goes wild, Mark.
I'm going to have to pull up something different next time. So, very nice, very nice. So, thank you for that warm welcome, everyone. We have a studio audience today. So.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so,
great.
Tony, how have you been, my friend?
I've been good. I brought my sound effects board today, so we're going to have some fun. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the markets. What the markets are doing today or what, but
I love it. Yeah. But no, we're not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there goes that. I worked it in anyway.
Well, I need to know, do you have a rim shot available? Because that's probably going to come in real handy. There you go. So keep your finger on that button, okay?
No, actually, for when you make jokes, Mark, I think we're going to hear this.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. So,
see what I did there?
Yeah.
No,
I think your paycheck just got lost in the mail, my friend. So.
Yeah, it did. So, what are we actually talking about today, Mark?
I think I'm just going to sit here and just talk like this. I think we're actually going to be talking about the value of a good co-host. No. The value of a retirement planner is what we're going to be talking about today. And what inspired this was I was meeting with a new prospect this week, and he said, I waited until retirement to hire a retirement planner because I never knew what one was. And so that's probably one of the toughest parts of our message is trying to educate people as to what that is, why do they need to graduate to that, hopefully before retirement. So we're gonna give you some tips on what a retirement planner is and why they are so valuable. So
wow, that sounds like a great topic because I think a lot of people out there are like, retirement planner, why do I need that? What's that? That sounds like for somebody, maybe I'm not wealthy enough to have a retirement planner, or, I've got a 401k. I don't understand what that is or why I need that. So I think this is a great discussion to have.
Yeah, I think so too. And we've done it before, but I think it's time we did it again. And I think we'll cover some different information this time than we have in the past as well. So
good.
So all good. I guess maybe let me just kind of give you just a little bit of an opening volley here, and then we'll take off from there. I think the first thing that people have to realize when they're thinking about, retirement, which, normally people don't come to see us until they're in their 50s, sometimes 60s. But we've got to understand that it is so much more complicated than it has been in years past. I've said this before. My grandfather, he worked till he was 65. He turned on to Social Security, had a nice pension. His house was paid for. And then he died 5 years later, and so that was 2 generations ago. Now, folks that are retiring, first of all, we're living on average to our almost mid 80s. So if you're retiring at 65 or maybe even earlier, which is happening a lot more, then we've got, I don't do math, but that sounds like 20 or more years, right? Of time that our money's got to last, and there's so many complications with it as well. My grandfather did not have a 401k; they didn't exist in those days. He had a CD paying 6% or something like that. So, just a really different world. And now with the fact that there's so many new tax rules and estate planning rules, and the fact that we have such a volatile market. And so many Americans now participate in the market. When my grandfather was working, nobody participated in the market that was middle America. They didn't, that began when the IRA and the 401k came out, and they were kind of forced to participate in the market. So a lot of changes, and I think that's why a retirement planner is so valuable now, as more than ever, for sure.
Well, yeah, Mark, and I think it's more important now than ever to have a plan in place to be able to deal with what's coming down the road. I mean, we're probably looking at more market volatility, higher taxes based on everything that we know. So you need to be prepared for these things. And even inflation. I've been reading about how things are going up exponentially now, and we're finally seeing some inflation out there.
Yeah, the Fed's going to let inflation begin creeping up some to kind of balance things out. And what scares me with the Fed is the Federal Reserve is that they've gotten so cocky that they can control the economy that I'm afraid at one point it's going to get away from them, and who knows what can happen at that point. And add to that all the stimulus bills that are being, all the money we're printing, and it's a very unclear future. And so that's why, again, and I think that's the first kind of reason why somebody needs a retirement planner is somebody that can identify, the horizon. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, and so even though things change constantly, I do know what to watch for, and I know, how to identify the upcoming risk, and fit it to the profile of the person we're working with. And so, it's nice to have somebody that's been through, 6 or 8 or whatever bear markets, including the Great Recession, to understand, what could happen again in the future. So I think that's the first big round point is just somebody to be there to consult with and to make sure that the average investor and a retiree doesn't make foolish decisions based on, emotions, the fear and greed of retirement and the stock market and all that type of stuff. So I think that's the first positive is somebody to hold your hand, so to speak, as we go through some of these times that we're going through.
Right. And that's huge, obviously. And it is, I think it is a sign of the times that you have to be aware and have a plan in place. And I know you've been doing this for a long time, because I imagine one of the big things, people have a lot of different types of retirement accounts, whether it's IRAs or 401ks or Roths, and they all have tax implications, and they're all basically lump sums. So what do you do in retirement? How do you create that income? That's a big part of what you do too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of the beginning of retirement planning is you kind of begin looking at, and I've got a new analogy here I want to share with you. Somebody comes into my office, and what they come in with is a checkerboard with a baggie full of checkers. Okay, and so they come in, and the first thing we do is we set up the checkerboard and put all the checker pieces on the board. In other words, we're organizing what they've got now. Okay, so and so now we've got it organized, and now I start taking the checker pieces off the board and replacing them with chess pieces. And the reason is because right now those checkers, they all do the same thing. Every checker is trying to grow and create income and protect risk and all that, and you can't do that with a checker piece. And so we replace it with chess pieces. So anybody that understands chess knows that each chess piece has a specific job or a specific move. So now we begin plugging in these chess pieces in order to play the game of retirement and have more, have each piece have a different job. And so maybe, we take somebody's 401k that's, $500,000 and we split off 100 of it, and that becomes income. And so we put that into a product that will create income. And then maybe another piece, because that 401k is not designed to create income. It was designed to grow. Well, now we're retired, we need about 6 different things going on to make sure our retirement works. And so that's step one, by the way, is creating the chessboard now. Now we've got all the pieces. And I don't know, you're a Star Trek fan?
Oh,
Tony?
yeah.
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 You remember the old TV show? Yeah. Well, you remember they had the chessboard that had like 3 or 4 levels?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we add level 2. And level 2 is, let's say, if you're a federal worker, is federal benefits. Okay, now we can actually move from the one board to the other as well as across each board. So now it becomes more complicated because not only are we trying to create income, But how is it taxed? How do we want it to be taxed? Do we want to be taxed now, later, a little bit along the way, or what? So now we have level 2. Then we add tax level 3. So we have federal benefits if you're a federal worker. If you're not, level 2 is tax planning. Level 3 is estate planning, and maybe another level. So now we're dealing anywhere from 3 to 5 levels of chessboards that have to interact with each other. And so I don't know. I think that's a great analogy for what we do and the different levels that come into that make it so complicated.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you mentioned I love the Star Trek analogy because they had that like three level chessboard, and I always wondered, now how is that going to work? I always thought I was always trying to grapple with that or wrap my head around how would a 3-level chess game work? And this whole time I could have just went to you. You just did a pretty good job of the analogy and making it work there. So it does get complicated, and that is why it is so great to work with a professional, because there are all these pitfalls and mistakes that so many people make when it comes to retirement planning that cost them a lot of money. It means they might run out of money sooner in retirement. And to avoid all these things, that's what a financial planner or retirement planner does. Am I getting that?
Yeah, but because many of the decisions you're going to make are one-time decisions, and you can't reverse them. So once you've made that decision, in many cases, it's a done deal. And you look back and go, why did I do that? Or this caused that to happen, or this caused, there's so many examples of that it's scary. And again, that's why the beginning of all this is getting everything organized. What do you have now? And then begin thinking about what are your needs in the future, and hopefully we're starting 5 years before retirement or whatever. But again, I've had people walk in 2 weeks after retirement and say, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever. And so we step in and we start, helping them. But it does start with organizing, figuring out what we have now and what does that need to become to meet this individual's needs. And every plan is different because every individual is different. I've never had a plan anywhere close to being the same with every client we have, and we have certain, a couple of hundred clients. And so, again, getting it organized, finding out where we're at, then where we're going. And then I think the next important thing that I like to work on, Tony, is the most important thing in retirement, and that's income. So, if you've got Social Security, we want to maximize that. If you have a pension, we want to maximize that. And there are things you can do to maximize those items. And we have the software as well as the knowledge to do that. And so income planning is, once we get the big picture of retirement planning and what your needs are and where you're going, we start off on the piece of income planning. What do you need? And that takes a little bit of time too. I mean, how do you know what you're going to need in 5 years in retirement? That's not an easy thing to come up with. So we kind of start with what you're living on now, and then we start making adjustments. And then we start saying, where's that money coming from? And we line up the Social Security and the pension if you have one. And then we start looking at creating income producing buckets. That's their job, is to produce income. So I think the most important thing is the income plan, which is why we put it first.
Right. And so creating income, that's the biggest part of it, and making sure that you have that income that's going to be there every month to live comfortably and that will last. And that's the trick, that, the old line, I don't want my bank account to hit zero before my blood pressure does.
Exactly, and that's the biggest fear people have when they come to see us. I'll ask them, what's your biggest concern? And it's either I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money before I run out of life, just like you just said, or I won't have enough income, or I'll spend my later years being a burden on somebody, and things like that. So that's why the income is so critical. And it's interesting. I have never had somebody come into my office with an income plan already in place, because either they've not worked with anybody or they've been working with somebody that just does investments, like somebody at Wells Fargo or Schwab or whatever. Has helped them maybe invest money over the years. But, if you look at them and saying, I need an income plan, in most cases, they glaze over. If you look at them and say, when should I take Social Security? I've had clients tell me this. They say, I've asked my banker this or my securities person. They say, well, we don't do that. Well, what about taxes? Should we do some tax planning? Go open a Roth. That's their example of a tax plan. And so that's what comes next after income planning is tax planning, because now that income, we've got it coming in. how's it taxed as it comes in, and taking into account that we know now. I used to say we are sure. Now we know that taxes are going up. But the new administration has promised to raise taxes, and they say on the wealthy, but their example of somebody wealthy is making 50 or 60,000 a year or more. And so, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, well, they're not going to raise taxes on the people that make less than 30 or 40. I said, because they don't pay taxes. You can't lower your tax rate if you're not paying. My parents make very little money. They live off of Social Security, and so if that's pretty much all your income, they don't even file a tax return. There's no need to, because there's no taxable income. So you can't lower that tax rate. So certainly you're going to have to attack the people that pay taxes, and that starts at around 40 or 50,000 a year. And that's where they're going to start the tax increases, all the way up to the wealthy. The problem with the wealthy and the very wealthy is they have so many experts around them that are creating foundations and credit shelter trusts and all these things that can hide income, that they're able to avoid a lot of the higher taxes, so it falls on the middle class. So we've got to have a tax plan. If you're worth anywhere between $200,000 and $5 to $10 million, you need a tax plan, and because you're going to get hit hard. Because I would be willing to bet, if you've got anywhere between that amount of money, that 80% of it is in some type of a qualified plan that you're going to pay taxes on later. Well, guess what, Tony? Later, taxes will be higher. So we need to start now to get that straight. So that's kind of step. Once we get the retirement planning started, and then we get into income planning, tax planning becomes the next most important thing.
Yeah. Well, why don't you let our listeners know? Let's take a minute here to let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you. And the great thing about all this is you don't have to spend a lot of money to make this happen. In fact, you're offering a complimentary, no cost, no obligation consultation if they want to just sit down and talk about it.
Exactly. First of all, we were based on education, Tony, as you know, and so we kind of start off the process with just ask me anything. I mean, whatever your worries are, just to kind of see if I can help you out with some answers. And then if you're interested in digging a little bit deeper, we'll actually do complimentary reports. We'll do up to 7 or 8 reports for you to show you where you're at, where your risks are, what are the chances of running out of money, and in what situation would you run out of money. And so those are all complimentary as well. So after that first meeting, if you're like, hey, this sounds like something I could use, we'll run the reports, see where the infection's coming from, see where the problems are coming from, why do you have this pain in your back or whatever. And then, if we decide to work together, of course, then we begin solving those problems. But you're exactly right. Complimentary first meeting, they get the reports, they get copy of my book, The Road Less Traveled, which is becoming very popular. So I guess the best way to reach us, Tony, is the website, masterplanretire.com. It has lots of information, has videos, it has our upcoming events, classes we teach online that are complimentary, classes about Social Security, income planning, federal benefits, government benefits, pretty much anything that would apply. So I think that's a great place to start. Plus, there's a button right there on the main page. It says schedule an appointment. If you push that button, my calendar pops right up, and every opening that's on there is there. And if you want to grab 30 minutes or an hour somewhere, you grab it. We know about it automatically. We follow up and send you some information about the online meeting. Send you a link. So we make it very easy to do that. And so again, it's just a chance to chat about your situation and what your concerns are. So Master Plan Retire is probably the best way. And I do have, based on what I'm looking at now, probably about 5 openings over the next week to 10 days. And they get snatched up pretty quick. So if you're listening to this show, give us a call. If it's over the weekend, leave a message, and the first message on there gets the first appointment. Or just go to my calendar and go ahead and schedule it yourself, and you'll be taken care of.
All right. Well, that sounds great, and I think that's fantastic. Now, we've got a little bit of time left here, Mark, so I wondered where you wanted to go. What are some other things that a financial planner helps people plan for? I mean, obviously, we've talked about some of these things in the past, like Social Security maximization, accounting for inflation, taxes in retirement. These are all big issues that you help deal with, right?
Yeah, and I think, though, I think a good thing to mention here at this point is You know, estate planning is very important, and we've talked about estate planning before, and that kind of ties everything together, so you have control over that, even if you become incapacitated or whatever. So very important. So many people come in here and they have a will from 25 years ago, and you know, when the kids were 2, and now everything's changed, and you know, sometimes you don't like talking about it. But some of the other things too is leveraging someone's expertise. I mean, it's almost like you're borrowing my brain to find out what's the best thing for me. So I think that's a very important part of retirement planning. Something else is being a fiduciary and having the kind of licenses we have. We have access to tools that you don't have access to. There are things out there that you can invest in or purchase or use or whatever that you have to go through a fiduciary or some type of a planner to get those products. And so if you want the truly higher level items available, tools available, you have to go through somebody like us. I've talked about Social Security planning. A big one that comes up too is healthcare planning and long-term care planning. You know, they say, according to research, the average couple is going to spend $260,000 over their retirement lifetime just for health care. That doesn't include long-term care. That's just health care. People go, how could you spend that much? Well, first of all, you're paying, you know, for a couple, you're paying about $300 a month for Medicare Part B. You may be paying a couple of $100 more a month for your supplement. So that's $6,000 a year right there. And then you start looking at the deductibles and the copays and the donut hole and all that. It's very easy to see how much it could cost. Now, I don't know where healthcare is going. I don't know if we're going to go universal. I don't know what's going to happen. But even if it goes universal, guess what? You're going to pay for it through higher taxes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the tax planning coming back into play, you know. Yeah. And then you throw in long-term care planning, and I'm not saying go out and buy a long-term care policy. There's some better tools available now as opposed to just buying a policy that you pay into for 25 years then you may never use, and now half your money's gone to something you didn't use. So that's just some of the other areas that that are an important part of what we're doing, and I'm still not covering them all, and I couldn't cover them all today. We'd have to do a 6-part series or something, but that's some of the things that I think make it so critical to get a good fiduciary, holistic retirement planner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's huge. And so, right, estate planning. We could do a series of shows on legacy planning, estate planning, or on healthcare costs in retirement. I mean, healthcare costs in retirement, like you say, are huge. And, you know, hearing you say how much healthcare is going to cost me in retirement, I'm going to have to hit you up for a loan for that. So
well, yes, very nice. I'll send you a check, okay?
Yeah, please do. I mean, $260,000 plus, and that doesn't include long-term care. And long-term care is a whole other issue. But I like what you alluded to there, and I just want to reiterate what you said. And we've talked about it a little bit, but there are other options to help cover long-term care, and with you can get retirement vehicles that help cover, or have riders that will help cover long-term care if you need it. But if you don't lose that money. So I think that's really important to understand all the options to look at, and everybody's situation is different. So some things are going to work for some people, other things will work better for other people, right?
Exactly. And there's no perfect fit for everyone. Everyone has different needs, different amounts of money, different situations. Again, we could do another 10 shows on the different types of plans that we use because they're all different. They have some similarities, and that's where my book comes into play and kind of gives the overall retirement roadmap. But when it comes down to specifics, each situation is different, and there are tools that we use that I've not talked about in a while. I mean, right now we're using precious metals to kind of hedge against market losses, because as they print more money, whether the market goes up or down, it doesn't mean your dollar hasn't lost value. So maybe your investment account's grown by 10%, but the dollar dropped by 10%. So precious metals will hedge against that, because precious metals climb when the dollar sinks and when the markets are volatile. And then we've seen that in the last year and a half. Precious metals have gone up between 25 and 35%. We expect another jump here in the coming 6 months to a year. So again, just another tool. And do you need that? I don't know. As an individual, we need to talk about it and see if that's something that would fit into part of your plan. It's different for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's great. We're out of time for today's show. Why don't you let our listeners know really quick how they can get a hold of you?
Well, again, I think the very best way is visiting the website, masterplanretire.com. Lots of information. Right there on the first page is a video that kind of, it's 5 minutes long and kind of describes what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And very well done. It's a very good website, lots of information, calculators. And again, probably the most important page, I think, is the events page. Go see what classes are coming up. You can watch them in the comfort of your living room on computer. You can actually interact with us and ask questions during the class, and then we have a Q&A at the end of the class. We're averaging anywhere from 25 to 100 people on each class, and I'd say we're teaching 6 classes a month on average. So we're trying to get the word out there about education and knowing, and then also, again, if that complimentary consultation is so powerful to be able to Zoom one-on-one with me and talk about your unique situation, because you're different than everybody else. And so hopefully folks will take advantage of that. Masterplanretire.com, go to the front page and push the little button that says schedule my appointment. Push that button, my calendar pops up, grab one of those spots before somebody else does, and let's chat about your situation.
All right, thanks, Mark. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Retirement Roadmap Radio with our host, Mark Fricks.
Yeah, glad you joined us today. I hope this was helpful. I hope you'll take advantage of the complimentary offer. But in the meantime, we hope to see you again, same place, same time next week. All these shows are also available on podcast, either through our website or through all the major podcast apps. So you can pick up the past shows. We've got, I think, about 150 shows out there, if I remember correctly, Tony. But in the meantime, see you next time. And remember, plan well and prosper.